promise to create animals that look, move, and act like the real thing. Coming up, we'll explore the special blend of science and art that makes artificial animals so convincing they can fool movie audiences.
Okay, guys, we gotta reset.
And sometimes even Mother Nature. Next on Movie Magic. In his poem, The First Friend, Rudyard Kipling wrote, "When the man waked up, he said, 'What is Wild Dog doing here?' And the woman said, 'His name is not Wild Dog anymore, but the First Friend, because he will be our friend for always and always and always.'"
Action!
Capturing the essence of man's best friend is what the filmmakers on Fluke hope to achieve. This modern-day fable follows the adventures of a dog who remembers his past life as a boy. While trained dogs will perform most of the action, animatronic doubles will be used for shots that are too dangerous or difficult to film with real animals. Dave Nelson, who previously built mechanical canines for Beethoven and Beethoven's Second, faces the immense challenge of creating identical twins for Comet, who plays Fluke, and Barney, who co-stars as Rumbo.
It's relatively easy to do a dinosaur that looks like a dinosaur. You've nothing to compare it with. You put something fake next to a real thing, and no matter how good you get it, there's something that's not quite there.
The process of approximating nature begins by taking photographs, reference video, and precise measurements of Comet and Barney. Design of an animatronic 9-week-old Fluke puppy, also needed in the film, requires some guesswork. It will need to be completed even before the real puppy it seeks to copy is born. Dave's crew of 25 is divided into two groups. Norman Tempia oversees the character fabrication, which includes sculpting clay models that are used to cast foam latex skin, and selecting synthetic fur that will match the real dogs. Dave heads up the mechanical team, which begins by machining thousands of custom-made parts from aluminum, brass, and plastic. The robotic dogs are assembled from the inside out, beginning with the head. Crammed into the small space are more than 100 moving parts powered by 14 servos. These are small electric motors, controlled remotely using model airplane-type radio transmitters.
We pick the functions of the dog which are real prominent, the ears, the eyes. We knew that would be some sniffing in this, so we actually put noses in, made sure we had nostrils that go in and out and also up and down.
The teeth and gums are sculpted from dental acrylic and then hand-painted. The tongue, molded from a very soft silicone material, will be anchored to a bar at the back of the mouth, which provides the forward and back panting motion. The eyes were obtained by mail order. Dave sent photos of the real dog's eyes, along with desired diameters, to Nissel Limited, a prosthetic eye company just outside London, England. Here, acrylic resin is tinted to match the color of the sclera, or white part of the eye, and then poured into molds. After 24 hours, the hardened resin is mounted on a lathe and cut by a diamond drill into the eyeball shape. Each eye is then hand-painted and covered with a clear resin. Within a few weeks of placing the order, the finished eyes arrive back at Dave's shop in Los Angeles.
You see that, Norm? It's pretty quick.
The animatronic dog's body movements are actuated by 50 cables. These run from hand-operated controls up through the hollow fiberglass back legs and onto the tail, front legs, shoulder, and neck.
Once we've gone past this stage, we've made the mechanics and we stick the skin on.
Next, Norman meticulously glues on the fur in small sections, and sometimes hair by hair. Carefully matching color and texture, he works with a variety of synthetic furs from around the world. German teddy bear fur is used for the soft hair around the muzzle. Norman then spends hundreds of hours airbrushing each dog to match the live animal's color subtleties and highlights. After 4 months of intensive work, the animatronic doubles are ready to leave Dave's shop and travel to Atlanta, where Fluke will be shot. There, Dave and his crew finally meet the movie's real puppy, which they had tried to approximate sight unseen. Not surprisingly, the animatronic puppy needs some work before it can double for the real animal.
We don't see this puppy until we turn up on set. You know, we built this dog, 4 months ago before this guy was even born. What we need to do with this now, we need to take a little wash right over it to give it that grey, softer look.
While Norman works on the puppy, Dave gets their animatronic Barney ready for the cameras.
This is the power that powers the head. Plug that in.
Operating each dog requires 5 puppeteers. Dave wears a backpack with hand controls for the head and neck. Norman operates the tail. The other 3 puppeteers manipulate facial movements with radio transmitters.
We all have to coordinate the moves and rehearse them. And it just takes a lot of practice to get everybody in sync to make it realistic.
For a scene in which Fluke is turned over to a science lab and strapped into a harness for experimentation, the mechanical dog is used for wide shots, as well as close-ups when lab technicians drop chemicals into its eyes. To film a pivotal car accident scene that would never be shot with a real animal, a special Fluke double was created. An air mortar hidden in the back seat of the car will send it through the windshield.
We built a dog which is purely built for that specific reason, and it's built with all springs inside it so that nothing will snap.
Let's roll off cameras. 3, 2, 1, go!
The animatronic puppy, only a few days after encountering its live twin, has made an amazing transformation and is now ready for filming. In the movie, the young Fluke grows up to prove worthy of the name man's best friend. And with this motion picture, Dave Nelson has proven he can create canine copies that would make Mother Nature proud. When we come back, Hollywood simians evolved from phony ape costumes to the incredibly realistic gorillas in the mist. Photojournalist Michael Nichols spent more than 10 years in the forests of Africa and Asia studying great apes like these gorillas at the San Diego Zoo. He wrote, "They're beautiful creatures. They're so gentle. The silverback is dignified even when he's eating or lolling around, or letting infants use his back for a sliding board." Apes have a long history on the silver screen, but in early film appearances they were neither dignified nor realistic. Gorilla suits were tailored to fit the actors inside. No attempt was made to replicate the differences in body shape which distinguish these animals from humans. Their longer arms and shorter legs, wider pelvis, and massive rib cage.
Don't shoot to kill.
As for the gorilla's face, it was given as little screen time as possible. That changed in 1968, when Charlton Heston shared the screen with a group of unusual co-stars.
That Bright Eyes is remarkable. He keeps trying to form words.
You know what they say, human see, human do.
When Heston and director Franklin Schaffner first brought the Planet of the Apes script and conceptual drawings to 20th Century Fox, studio head Richard Zanuck was far from convinced that the movie would work.
And he said, now, you got all these great paintings of these monkeys, he said, but you're going to have to use actors, right? You can't use real monkeys. We said, no, it'll be actors, makeup. He said, supposing the audience laughs at the makeups. And he said, I tell you what I'll do. I'll put $150,000, which at that time was a lot of money, into developing the makeups. And we'll do a test, and I'll take it and show it to the board of directors in New York. And if they don't laugh, I'll do the movie. We did, and they didn't, and he did.
The makeup artist was John Chambers, who began his career as a medical technician in the Army, creating prosthetic devices such as artificial noses and ears for wounded soldiers. For Planet of the Apes, Chambers divided each ape face into several sections, allowing maximum flexibility for the actors. He also developed a new formula for foam latex, which produced functional pores. This enabled the actors, who had to wear their makeup for as long as 18 hours at a stretch, to perspire through the appliances rather than under them.
Smile.
Richard Zanuck's gamble paid off at the box office, and John Chambers' successful approximation of nature earned him a special Academy Award.
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Planet of the Apes had an enormous impact on 18-year-old makeup effects prodigy Rick Baker. The film rekindled his boyhood fascination with apes and marked the beginning of a lifelong quest.
So this is something you could do. I think you could really make something that looked like the real animal and fool somebody with it. So that was my new mission. That was my goal, to build the ultimate gorilla suit.
His start came on a low-budget horror picture in 1971. For The Thing with Two Heads, Rick created a movie gorilla that was anatomically correct, with the slight discrepancy of an extra appendage. In 1976, Rick made the leap to big-budget filmmaking with the remake of King Kong. 5 Kong heads were built, each capable of a limited range of expressions and controlled by off-camera operators using a push-pull cable system. After refining his movie gorillas in The Incredible Shrinking Woman and Greystoke, The Legend of Tarzan, Rick designed his first self-contained, cable-free head for Harry and the Hendersons.
On top of the actor's head are a bunch of servo motors that operate this face. So in conjunction with his opening and closing of the jaw and what he could do with his eye, then we would get these different expressions.
Rick's version of Bigfoot was his most expressive simian character yet, and brought him 1987's Academy Award for Best Makeup Effects. But it was his next film, Gorillas in the Mist, that would fully test Rick's art and skill. In bringing the story of naturalist Diane Fossey to the screen, director Michael Apted wanted to intercut between actors in gorilla suits and the real animals.
I said, you can't do that. You should do it all with fake gorillas, or you should do it all with real gorillas, but you can't really mix and match.
But Apted had made up his mind, and Rick decided to accept the challenge of trying to fool Mother Nature. With all of Rick's previous ape heads, the actor's eyes had been incorporated into the face, but that meant matching the proportions of the human head, and resulted in an ape that was anatomically inaccurate. This time, he would have to build a fully mechanized head with false eyes. The face of the male silverback gorilla named Digit was particularly important, as it would be seen in close-up throughout the movie. Digit's body was also designed to duplicate nature. Rick fabricated a correctly proportioned muscle suit to be worn under the skin and fur.
Yeah, I think we're going to need to trim the shoulders a bit here.
Every hair on Digit's massive body was individually hand-tied, taking 6 full-time workers 8 months to complete. Mechanical arm extensions were engineered to match the greater length of a gorilla's arm, with dexterous hands and fingers controlled by the actor inside. Gorillas in the Mist was completed in just over 1 year. But for Rick Baker, it was the culmination of a 2-decade-long quest and established him as Hollywood's undisputed King of the Apes.
I feel that Gorillas in the Mist, I think, is the best ape costume I've built, in that we were able to do something that I didn't even think we could really do, which was on film to have a shot of a real gorilla and right next to it a fake gorilla. The Digit suit is the gorilla suit I always wanted to build.
And 5th digits whipped. Digit.
When we return, a wizard of robotic engineering seeks to replicate nature underwater for Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. In his classic novel, Moby Dick, Herman Melville wrote, "The humpback is the most gamesome and light-hearted of all whales, making more foam and white water than any other of them." One would not normally expect to see whales in a science fiction adventure like Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home. But a pair of humpbacks play a pivotal role in the film when an alien probe threatens planet Earth.
The probe's transmissions are the songs sung by whales. Whales? Specifically, humpback whales.
It was the whales, more than any spaceship or alien, that posed the biggest special effects concern for the movie's producers.
You had to believe that our characters would interact and be in the water with a real whale. If that didn't sell, the movie doesn't work.
To head up the whale team, Effects House ILM called in robotics engineer Walt Conti.
That was my very first film. So it was a great way to start, and yet, looking back, the stakes were very, very high.
Walt began by watching hours of humpback whale footage, seeking to pinpoint the essence of the animal's movement.
The tail actually both propels it forward and makes a turn by turning the tail sideways, and the pecs are for the subtlety of movement up and down.
Walt came up with a plan that had never been tried before: the creation of totally self-contained, free-swimming miniature whales. He and a small team of model makers and mechanical engineers quickly built a 30-inch long prototype. It only incorporated tail movement and had an external power cord, which Walt planned to later replace with internal batteries. But the model humpback was successful in demonstrating the basic swimming motion for the producers.
At that point, when they saw footage of that, they said, go for it. And at that point, we started sculpting the real model and deciding how to do the other subtleties, the pec fins, and the detail.
The length of the final whale was increased to 4 feet in order to incorporate 6 servos that controlled the pec fins. A waterproof electronics box containing a radio receiver and batteries, and 2 large servos for the tail.
What we have here is really the guts of things that go inside the skin. So basically it was this plus the skin that made up the whole whale. And this one chamber in the middle here is the only area that stayed dry. Everything else got flooded with water. And this foam was actually flotation foam. If we didn't have this foam in here and water went everywhere, the thing would sink. So we had to add enough foam to make the thing just neutrally buoyant in the water so that it wouldn't either rise or it wouldn't sink, and it would just swim.
The skin was molded from a dense polyurethane, which felt and looked like real whale blubber. It was made especially thick around the tail, where even a little wrinkling would appear huge on the wide screen and destroy the believability of the effect. In just over 3 months, Walt and his team built 4 of the model humpbacks. Each was designed to be operated by 2 puppeteers, one controlling the tail and the other the pecs. The crew had 2 weeks to practice puppeteering the whales and to iron out any operational problems before filming would begin.
Lost it.
We lost it. Paul! Go, Paul! Go!
Radio waves by nature don't like to go through water. So there is limits on the depth of which you can operate these things. And early on, we had very weak signals, and then we ended up buying amplifiers to amplify the radio control waves to penetrate the water.
The final filming took place in a high school swimming pool. To duplicate the density and color of real ocean water, the pool was muddied with diatomaceous earth. The effect was further enhanced by filming at high speed, which when projected, slows the whale's movement through the water, creating the illusion of greater mass.
We had a complaint from the Fish and Game Board or something that they thought that we had actually gone out and photographed or gotten close to the real humpback whales. We knew then that we had something that even the expert, he couldn't tell.
Admiral, there be whales here.
It's still one of the highest pinnacles in all the work I've done is that moment when this thing, which no one thought would swim, which I wasn't even sure would swim, and it actually swims and it actually looks like a whale. It was just like this, it transcends all the details and all the processes, and it's like takes on a life of its own, this thing that's swimming on screen.
After successfully going where no other effects artist had gone before, Walt Conti opened his own animatronic shop, Edge Innovations. He has since turned his attention to bigger things, like a full-size killer whale for Free Willy.
The pulp and maybe do a little scratch.
For one of the final scenes to be filmed on the movie Fluke, Dave Nelson has created an animatronic raccoon to join his cast of mechanical canines. And Rick Baker has moved another step toward perfectly replicating nature with this lifelike gorilla for John Hughes' comedy, Baby's Day Out. These talented artisans have spared no effort in crafting convincing movie creatures. Born equally of art and science, their animatronic animals come to life on the big screen. They look and move like the real thing, fooling even the most discerning eye. It's a perfect blend of Mother Nature and movie magic.